Okay, what I wanted to do is just a quick tutorial on retopology in Maya. So when you have a character that you created, usually what you're going to be doing, so you've got a high poly character, which is what I have here. If I go to display, I can go heads up display and then pick polygon count right here, and then it's going to show me my polygon count. So if I go under tries right here, you'll see that this little bug has 250,000 polygons. Okay, so that's not, something that can be animated. And when you're making characters, like if you're sculpting them in Mudbox or ZBrush, you're wanting to make them so that they're animatable. All right, so the best thing is to hand retopologize it. A lot of times you may be in a rush for a presentation or something and you want to auto retopologize it, which isn't optimal, but it is something you can do, and I want to show you how to do that. So let me reiterate. The best way is to hand retopologize it, okay? But in a pinch, you can auto retopologize it, okay? And to do that, first thing you'd want to do is pick it. And then you want to go to a mesh and you want to go to retopologize and you want to go to its settings here. Now, it's important to know how many polygons it has to see how far we can take it down, okay? So let's say this is 250,000, so let's take it down to 50,000. So right over here on your target face count, you can tell it how many you want. So I'm going to say 50,000, which is still a lot, but we're just going to do it this way. Now, another thing you want to check is keep the original. So it's not, what it's going to do is retopologize it, and it's going to keep the original so that we can compare it. Okay, so you don't want to retopologize your actual. If you leave this off, then it's going to retopologize your piece, and we want a copy so we can compare it, because we may want to adjust this some. Okay, and then hit apply, and then it's going to go in and it's going to retopologize this. Okay, and according to how many polygons you're telling it, it may take a while to do, so I'm going to pause this while it's doing it. Okay, so now it's finished it. And so what I'm going to do here is just take it and we're just going to move it off where you can see what it's done here. Okay, so you can see some of the more displacement kinds of things, which could be baked into a map, are gone off of this. Okay, but you can see it's a lot less poly count. Okay, now for a gaming model, I'm just going to hide this. We'd want to take it down considerably. Okay, let's say, I don't know, let's do something like 2,000 polys. Okay, let's try that. So then I'm going to apply that to it and let it think about that. This will take a lot less time because it's fewer polygons. Okay, see, it went pretty quick. I'm going to hide my original. And you can see a much lower poly count. All right, let's move that one off. Okay, I think really I might want to go with something a little bit more poly than that. So let's try one more. So we'll go back here and let's try 5,000 and see what we get with that. Okay, so that's done. We'll slide that one off. So let's kind of put these in order. Let's pull this one out further. Let's pull this one across. So you see that one kept a lot more detail. And we've got our versions here. So like I said, this is not the most optimal way to do this, because what you'd really want to do is to come in and be able to, actually tell it where you want the polygons to go. But in a pinch, something like this would work. And then what we would do is cast normals. So we would align these, and then we would cast the normal map off of the high poly onto the low poly. And that's easily done in Substance Painter. And then it will capture the detail off of this and put it on this. So this is a quick way to do low poly retopology. It's not optimal, because in the industry, most of the times they're going to want you to do it manually, so we know exactly where the polygons are, but you can do this in a pinch. Okay, so let's turn our display back off. All right, then let's look at the wireframes. And okay, so there's our final versions. 250,000, 50,000, 5,000, 2,000. Okay, auto retopology. Hope that helps you. Thank you. Okay, now that we have our objects created, okay, we decided we're going to use this one. So let me just go ahead and hide these other two. And one of the things I need to show you is that, let's turn our wireframe off, is that this has a material on it, okay? And we want to be able to use this same bitmap, this texture map that's on here. We want to use it on this one. Okay, now this one right now, once we retopologized it, since the materials bitmap is snapped to the vertices, and we have a different set of vertices on this, then this no longer has a viable UV map on it. Okay, so what we want to be able to do is to transfer the UV coordinates off of this one and put them onto this one. Okay. All right, so the first thing we want to do is to align these two together. So if I pick them both, then I go up to Modify, and we're going to go down to Select Align Objects, and we want to align the objects. Okay, and now these are going to be in the same world space. Okay, because what we're going to be doing is transferring the UVs from one to the other based on its world space. Okay, so we picked this one. You pick the one that you want to transfer. Okay, hold down the Shift key and then pick the other one. Then we're going to go up here to Mesh, and we're going to come down here where this says Transfer Attributes, and we want to click on the Settings. So what we want is vertex off, vertex normals off, okay. The UV sets, that's what we're paying attention to, and we want all, okay. So we want the UV sets to transfer, and we want it to use world space. Okay, so before we do this, I just want to show you that if I pick the high and I go to UV editor, you can see it's unwrapped here, okay. But if I pick the low one, it doesn't have any UVs, okay. All right, so let's bring this one back out. Okay, so pick that one, pick this one, okay. Mesh, transfer attributes, here, off, we want the UV sets to all, we want world, and we want to transfer. Okay. So now if I deselect and I pick the low and I go up here to UV editor, you'll see now it's transferred those UVs onto the low poly so that I can put the same material on the low poly. Now there's a little bit of a trick here, is because that we're projecting in world space, this is a live mesh, and if I try to move it right now, it's moving it out of the world space. Okay, so what we have to do is kind of like we have to collapse that UV into it, because right now it's still projecting from the high poly to the low poly. It's like they're linked together. So what we have to do is we have to delete the history. Okay, we're going to go to edit, delete by type, and we want to go history. Now what that did is now Maya keeps a history and it understands where we can go back in time. And so what it did is it broke the link with the high poly, so I can move the low poly now. So now when I move it off of here, that mapping coordinate is permanently baked into it. It's not being projected onto this one anymore. So now, if we go back and I'm going to apply the material that's on this one onto this one, you'll see both of them have the materials on there now. Okay, so the last thing I want to do is to go bake some more information from this one. Okay, I want to bake the normal maps off of it. I want to bake an ambient occlusion off of it. So we're going to do that in Substance Painter. So before I do that, I need to align these again. So we go to Modify, Snap Align Objects, Align Objects, and now they're back together. Now I do want to turn our grid on for a section, because where we really want these is to be at 0, 0 space. So we want them to be back. They don't have to be perfect in here, but we want them to be pretty much in the center of our world. Okay, so now what we need to do is to create normal maps, and we're going to use Substance Designer to do that. So before we do that, what we have to do is export these. So I'm going to pick the high poly one, and I'm going to go File, Export Selected. I want to just export the selected object, not the whole thing. Okay, and then what I want to do is, you can leave the defaults, okay? And we're going to go Export Selected, and then I'm going to tell them where I want it to go. So I'm just going to go here, and I'm going to make this an FBX, and I'm going to call this bug underscore high. Okay. Now it's important that how I spell high, because in Substance Painter, it assumes that you can give it any name you want, but the extension at the end is going to be high, and then the low is going to be low. Okay. So I export this. Okay. And then I'm going to pick the low one, and I'm going to do the exact same thing. Export Selected. And then I'm just going to overwrite this old one I've already done. So this one's low, and then Export Selected. And now I've converted these to FBXs, which is what Substance Painter uses. And I've got them ready so that I can bring them in. So let's switch over to Substance Painter. Okay, so here's Substance Painter. We're just going to be using it to bake. So it's I'm not going to teach you the whole thing, but just how to bake in here. So the first thing we have to do is we get a file, make a new file, and we're going to use the default of PBR metallic roughness. Okay. And we're going to bake 2048s. And then I need to select my low poly. You're selecting the low poly. Okay, now, big thing right here. There's an auto unwrap in here. We've already unwrapped our object, so this will override unwrap, so we do not want to do that. Make sure that's off. And then click OK, and it's going to bring the model in. Now, you'll see over on the left, and this is using Alt left mouse button, just like in Maya. This is the 3D model. And then over here is, and this is your bitmap, okay, that's on it. So that shows you your unwrap on here, okay. All right, so now what we're going to do is, this may be on layers over here. You want to switch it to texture sets. Then we want to pull down to this section where it says mesh maps, and we want to bake mesh maps. All right, when this comes up, this is where we pick our high poly. So we're going to go in and pick our high poly source, bring that in. Now, it's going to initially align those on top of each other for us. And you probably will see some red. Okay, the red is showing us where the high poly model is outside of the projection zone. So this is the max distance. And so what we want to do is slightly pull this out. We don't want it any further than what we need to get all the red in here. So you can still see I've got some issues in here. So I'm going to keep pushing that out until I get it all in there. Looks like got a little bit of a problem down there. Okay, there we go. And so now everything is being projected. Okay, up here we want to change this to a 2048. We're using 2048s. Now over here on the left are all the things that it will bake for us. Well, all we really want is we want the normal map. We don't need world space. We don't need ID. We do want an ambient occlusion. Okay. We don't need a cursor position or thickness. So the two that we want to get out of this is a normal and an ambient occlusion. So then all you have to do is come down here and bake the textures. Okay, when it gets finished, click return to painting mode. And you'll see now we have a bunch of detail in here because it's projected all the normals off of there. Okay, so now we want to export our textures. File, export the textures. And then these are your global settings. Okay, so this is where it's going to output it. Okay, so I'm going to click this and I'm going to change where I want to put it. I'm going to put them right here. And we're still using the PBR template. Okay, I want to put these as 8-bit PNGs. Okay, there are other times we want my 16-bit and we might want to use EXRs, but for what we're doing, this is fine. Then you want to click where this says standard surface, and then these are the maps that it's going to click out. I forgot, the PBR doesn't kick out the ambient occlusion, so what you're going to want to do is go to output templates here and click on mesh maps. So after you do mesh maps, go back to settings, go back to your global settings, and we'll want to change, oops, not that one, here where it says metallic roughness, change this to mesh maps. Output templates. Okay, so there's our normal. We don't need ID. There's your ambient occlusions, so we want that. So we don't want any of these others. So normal, base, and ambient occlusion. Those are the two that we want. And then click export, and it will export those maps out. Okay, so now if we go over to Photoshop, we can see these. So let's just go File, Open, and here's my two maps. There's the normal map, and then there's the ambient occlusion map. Okay, so now the next thing we were ready to do is go over to Sketchfab. Okay, I'm over at Sketchfab, got Upload, and then let's Browse. Okay, go in here, and then I want to get my low poly bug, and I want to open that and upload the file. Okay, I'm going to pause it while it's uploading it. Okay, it's finished uploading it, and we'll just call this Mikey's Bug. Okay, and so we're just going to go save, and then I'm going to go edit settings. And it's brought my bug in here. Okay. All right, some things we want to do is under scene, under the background, we can go color. Let's make kind of a mid-tone gray. Something like that's fine. And then under lighting, we're going to use an HDRI file. You can use any of these that you want in here. I usually pick something like this that has a lot of things to reflect into it. And then we're going to go to our materials. Base color, let's just make it a gray right now. And then we can move around our object. Okay. Now you got a model inspector down here. You can go in and turn your wireframe on. You can see you got a nice wireframe on there. Okay, so let's close that. All right, so now we're ready to bring some things in. So let's go ahead and go down to bump, turn that on, normal map, manage the settings, and then I'm going to import the normal map, which is right here. Let's do that. And now, turn that wire off, and we can see we've brought our normal in here. So if I go to map cap, that's without the normal, that's with the normal. Without the normal, with the normal. Okay, so I close this inspector. Okay, I can bring in color, and that's going to be this was the original map. That's going to be my color on there. Okay, and got an ambient occlusion here. Let's turn that on. Let's import ambient occlusion map. That's a shadow map. And right now we don't have, we need to go to our, turn that off, our roughness, glossiness. This is how rough or glossy is. We don't have a map for that yet. Okay, we'll create one, but we don't have one. So I'm going to turn that up a little bit and make it a little glossier. And metalless off, specular should be at 50%. We're going to use a roughness to create the specular on it. Another thing that's a good thing to do is go to your post-processing, and we want to turn a vignette on, which just darkens the edges a little bit. Okay. Another thing you can do is back on your lighting is we can turn ground shadows on, so there's a shadow underneath it, like so. Now, when you do that, we're going to want to go over here to post-processing under anti-aliasing and turn this off, because the shadow gets some weird shearing if you don't do that. And so now when I hold the Alt key and I move my left mouse button, I can move the light around. And so then what we can do is we line this up with the way we want it to look. When they bring the viewer up, maybe something like, you know, this, then click this save view, and that saves this view, so when they bring it up, that's what they'll see. Okay, and so there you go. And so now you've got your model in here, got a base color in here. We haven't done the roughness, we'll come back and do that. We don't have any metal on this because it's a character, so we don't need a metal map. We've got an ambient occlusion map. That's our shadowing that's on there. And then, of course, we have our normal map, which looks like that. And now it's ready to put it up into your portfolio. Okay. By the way, once we put this viewer in your portfolio, if you come back to this and you put the roughness map and you do things, it'll automatically update back into your Behance portfolio. Okay, hopefully that helps you. All right, thank you.